69. Balance of Power Part 1. No, she can't. With her trust issues, she would stop believing in me. Put yourself in her shoes. Freya wouldn't know with who she has really interacted so far, and she would be afraid that you are somehow manipulating me. She too is paranoid. Telling her is a liability. Lith said. Solus sighed and said nothing more. Freya's level of craziness was dangerously similar to Lith's. She had chosen to establish a guild, yet she treated her companions as a means to an end and changed them more often than her socks. Unless the opportunity presented itself, she would react badly to a revelation as big as Solus's existence was. While waiting for Freya, Lith and Solus tried to sketch together all she could remember about the assassin's garb pseudo-core. Orion said that a gold alloy can't hold more than one incantation at a time, yet that garb had 3 of them. Maybe it used adamant instead of silver, he thought. My thoughts exactly. Solus forgot about her sense of isolation the moment they started to consider how to replicate the lost artifact. Ever since Ratpack's words had triggered her memory, her passion for magical research had become even stronger. The more she learned, the more she could feel her lost memories scraping at a corner of her mind, like words she had never forgotten yet she was never able to express. A new armor would be the perfect recipient for all of our resources. Even if magically boosted, a cloth remains cloth. Adamant is one of Mogar's legendary metals. If we can combine the skinwalker's properties with those of the garb, the durability lost due to mixing it with gold would be plenty balanced by its stealth properties. No one would recognize you as an awakened anymore, and by switching clothes at will you would always remain just a face in the crowd. Agreed. The problem is that while I know the skinwalker's pseudo-core like the back of my hand, I've no idea how to infuse an object with full guard. I need to ask Orion if he's capable of doing it, and if yes, I have to convince him to share the procedure with me. Something we can do as soon as the crisis is resolved, instead, is to take a second look at the fire I can produce while in my hybrid form. When it burned the layers of the assassin's garb, I realized that it can do much more than just destroy. Lith thought. I am eager to see what happens to an enchanted item if the flames aren't put out. What if they can drain a pseudo-core completely? They could open doors, disrupt arrays, maybe even delete the imprint left by the item's owner. Lith thought. It's not so simple. I remember the abomination who possessed the wargs calling them origin flames. I don't remember what they are, but something tells me they are very important. We must find out their real nature. Solus couldn't put her finger on it, but she felt that they shared a connection with the title, Ruler of the Flames her master Menadian mentioned in her memories. Lith and Solus spent the time before breakfast drawing and visualizing the assassin's garb pseudo-core. Solus hadn't seen it from many angles, and to make matters worse, the distance had made the mana pathways appear like a blur to her. They only had one forge of adamant, so their blueprint had to be perfect or everything would go to waste. Well, how did your hunt go? Freya was happy seeing him in one piece, yet she knew it didn't mean much. Floria wasn't the only one who back at the academy had noticed his ability to heal from deadly wounds like they were just scratches. 1 down, 3 more to go. Lith sighed while following her to the dining hall. 3? Oh, gods, we might need some of my men. 3 versus 2 would already be bad against regular mages, and it took 4 of you to take down Nalir. I don't like our odds. Don't worry, they are weaker than Nalir was, and I'm much stronger compared to 4 years ago. Yet I agree with you, we need a contingency plan, Lith said. They stopped talking the moment they saw a member of the house staff. Neither of them trusted their discretion, so they moved to a less sensitive topic. The Viscount was ecstatic of my discovery about the Griever, Freya said with a smug grin. He has doubled my guild's pay and fired half of his staff. Her smile disappeared thinking about all those poor people jobless in the dead of winter. Why did he do that? Because he removed all those who had the magical talent to cause that kind of wounds and all those who have any affiliation with the church. Now my men have to sleep, eat, and drink with the members of Krame's family. Freya's explanation made sense. I have the authority of the king now. I could conscript the members of the Crystal Shield Guild to compensate for the lack of manpower, but how much can I trust a mage who follows me only because he's forced to? At the same time, all of the city guards can't put a dent in an awakened's body. Only a mage can defeat an awakened mage, Lith thought. The dining room walls were painted of a pale blue and the floor was entirely covered by a single red and blue carpet with floral figures depicted on it. The chair's lining had the same pattern as the carpet, while the Viscount's coat of arms was engraved on their armrest. The walls were decorated with several paintings depicting Krame's ancestors, and the room's furniture was adorned with blue porcelain vases. The mercenaries sitting at the long rectangular table were all laughs and smiles due to the news of their pay being doubled, whereas the house staff was gloomy as if they were attending a funeral. Not only their workload had just doubled, but they were also afraid to lose their job. The Viscount offered food and accommodation to them and their families. Getting fired meant becoming jobless and homeless in one fell swoop. The members of the noble family weren't much happier having lost any shred of privacy. Yet they turned their frown upside down the moment they saw Lith. They considered Freya the strongest noble in the city, but now that the existence of an enemy capable of violating the safety of their house had been uncovered, none of them was foolish enough to refuse the help of the most powerful being for miles. Noble or not, Lith now appeared like a savior to their eyes, and they could only hope to not have compromised their relationship with the youngest spellbreaker of their generation. I am very sorry for how I treated you yesterday, Regent Verhin. The Viscount said, making all those sitting around the table choke on their food. Crane rarely apologized even to the city lord, and even when he did it, his tone made it clear it was just a formality. This time it sounded like he really meant it. Balance of Power Part 2. The Viscount despised commoners, but he was a man smart enough to know when to swallow his pride and play nice. Just a few hours ago, he was angry at Lady Ernez for bringing an unwanted guest inside his house. Crane didn't complain to her about it only because he was hoping to establish ties with the Ernez household. The sudden turn of events had made Freya a goddess of victory to his eyes. Having the city regent under his roof would ensure that all of his plans would come to fruition once the crisis was resolved. The Viscount was so angry at himself for his lack of foresight that if he could have traveled back in time, he would kick his own ass. Bad news travels fast, Lith thought. The High Command had bestowed upon him full control over Xantia in the middle of the night, yet the Viscount already knew about the shift in the balance of power. Between that incompetent fool of Sester, those lunatics hurting my business, and my family under siege, I must have lost my mind due to the stress. As a fellow noble and family man, I hope you can forgive my rudeness. If there's anything I can do to help, you just have to ask. Crane stood up, giving Lith a polite bow even though he was the lord of the house. His hypocrisy made Lith want to puke, but he had more important matters to attend to. The past is in the past. I'm sure Mage Freya has mentioned to you our need for a piece of sensitive information, Lith said. Before he could even finish the phrase, the Viscount took a folder out of his pocket dimension and handed it to Lith. I hope this is enough. I took care of procuring it through safe channels. The nature of your inquiry is known only to the three of us. Lith quickly checked the folder's content. Not only there was a complete list of all the people affected by the griever, but also another one containing all the names of the known members of the Church of the Six along with their addresses. It's perfect, Viscount. You can rest assured that the Crown will hear from me about your cooperation. Lith's words were actually far from being benign. He meant that he would not forget to mention how the noble had put his own interest before Xantia's and how Crane had treated him when he believed to have the upper hand. Yet his warm smile and calm tone fooled the Viscount, who could already picture himself obtaining the city lord's seat thanks to Lith's recommendation. After they finished eating, Lith and Freya went to her room to plan their next move. The Viscount had gracefully relieved her of all her duties and had assigned her as Lith's aide until the crisis was resolved. This suck, I didn't get to give you a single order that our positions are already reversed, Freya said while opening the door. Her room was actually a small apartment. It had a living room, a bedroom, and its own bathroom. Each one of them was bigger than Lith's room and was equipped with all comforts. It seems that I got the room reserved for the unwanted guests. Lith sat at the high table in the living room and unfolded a big map of the city of Xantia from the folder the Viscount had given to him. Then, he also took out the list of people affected by the griever and marked their addresses with red dots. Freya helped him, cross-referencing their names with the known affiliates of the Church of the Six. This doesn't make much sense, she pointed out once they were done. The number of people suffering from the griever are way less than I expected. There are barely more than 200 names on the list. Even a medium city like Xantia has thousands of citizens. Not even a hypochondriac would call something of this extent a plague. You are right, we are missing something, Lith said. After witnessing the anguish of the city guards, the fear in the eyes of Count Sester, and how the population of Xantia was split between believers and non-believers, he was expecting a much worse situation. The dots on the map were just a mess and he didn't recognize most of the names. He called his handler and asked her help. Camila was a data analyst. If there was a pattern, she should have been able to find it. Well, it's a very short list. It will just take a few minutes, she said after Lith had scanned for her all the information he had at his disposal. He could see her hands dancing on the holographic interface with the speed and the grace of a piano player. I can already tell you that the number of people on the list is oddly convenient. It's just a few units below the threshold that makes mandatory to alert the authorities. Camila's words made Lith realize another piece of the puzzle. Up to that moment, he had thought that the limited number of victims was due to the awakened behind the church lacking the manpower for a bigger scheme. Now, instead, he was sure it had been an intentional move to prevent outsiders from messing with their plan. Picking an isolated city in the middle of winter lockdown, the timing of my summon and of the snowstorm. This cannot be just a coincidence. Whatever they are doing, they must be hiding from the council, not the army. Otherwise they wouldn't risk involving me, Lith thought. I'm done, Camila said as the list on Lith's hologram was now reduced to 84 names, each followed by their position in the city's administrative offices and their clearance levels. Aside from the obvious city lord, these people are all bureaucrats and officials of medium importance. None of them holds a special relevance to the city, but if you put them all together, they give you access to all key points of Xantia. Among them there are the guards tasked to check the city entrances, clerks that can hasten or slow down any paperwork you might need, and even those in charge for the maintenance of the emergency rays. With their combined help, a smart person would have full control over Xantia's available resources. They could smuggle or hide anything inside the city and even take some of the relics stored there for emergencies without anyone noticing. I doubt it's anything that big, Lith shook his head. How long ago was the Church of the Six founded? Over 9 months ago, Camila replied. When did the griever first appeared? A month ago, right after the lockdown. I can't imagine Six Awakened wasting a whole year in the middle of nowhere. According to Fergan, the church was on the verge of collapsing before the griever. They must be using the church as a cover and as a scapegoat in case something goes wrong. Lith thought. We need a second map. Maybe if we remove all the marks belonging to the officials, we can get a better picture of why they picked those people as victims. Freya said. It's a waste of time. Lith extended his arms and used light magic to create a holographic copy of the map right above the real one. Thanks to his training, he was now able to add a tinge of colors by using other elements, giving it a higher definition.